She didn't sing for fame. She didn't sing for likes or follows. She sang because it was the only thing she had left. In a world that passed her by, where the crowds kept walking and the noise of the city drowned out small, fragile dreams. One young girl stood alone on a cracked sidewalk, clutching a second-hand guitar, beside a dented donation box and a fading cardboard sign. Her voice, soft, trembling, but etchingly sincere, rose into the cold air like a prayer. Not for herself, but for the one person she couldn't afford to lose. Her mother. This is the story of Lily Mae Carter, a girl with holes in her shoes, but stars in her voice, a girl who believed that maybe, just maybe, a song could be enough to buy a little more time, a little more medicine, a little more love. She didn't know who was listening, but the world heard her. And what happened next would remind us all that even in the darkest corners, the quietest voices can still move mountains. This is where her journey begins. 13-year-old Lily Mae Carter wasn't trying to become a star. She didn't have a social media page filled with polished selfies or flashy filters. She didn't even own a smartphone. Each afternoon after school, with her backpack still slung over one shoulder, she walked to the corner of Maple and Vine, a weathered sidewalk in downtown Savannah, Georgia. In her hands a second-hand microphone, its cord frayed with use. At her feet, a battered cardboard box, handwritten in black marker, singing for mom's medicine. Some people glanced at it, fewer paused. A few dropped in loose coins, quarters, nickels, the occasional crumpled dollar. But most kept walking, too busy, too tired, too numb to notice the small girl whose voice floated through the noise. Buses hissed at stop signs. Dogs barked in the distance. Tires rolled over puddles and cracks. But through it all, she sang, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Her voice wasn't perfect. It wavered at the high notes and sometimes cracked in the wind. But it was real, raw, tender in a way that only a child singing for someone she loved could be. Her mother, Angela Carter, once a school librarian, now lay weak at home, fighting a battle her body was losing. The cancer had spread. The pain came in waves some days. She couldn't even sit up in bed. They had no health insurance. The government support they received helped, but the weekly medications alone cost $2.97, more than Lily and her mom could afford even together. So Lily did what she could. She didn't beg, she didn't plead. She offered something, her voice, her heart. Everything she had left. One gray afternoon, a fine drizzle painted the streets of Savannah in silver. Cars moved slowly. The sky hung low. And Lily, as always, stood with her microphone, singing gently through the cold mist. That's when she saw him, across the street. Leaning quietly on a wooden cane, stood an older man, wrapped in a worn overcoat, a faded Navy veteran's cap perched low on his brow. He didn't move. He didn't smile. He simply watched. The next day he was back, and the day after that too. On the third afternoon, just as Lily was setting up her speaker, the man crossed the street. He walked slowly but deliberately, the cane tapping against the pavement like a metronome. In his gloved hands, he held a steaming cup of peppermint tea. He handed it to her without a word at first. Then softly he said, "Name's Walter. I used to come here with my wife. She loved that song you sing. Especially in the rain." Lily looked up, surprised. Her lips curved into a small, shy smile. "My mom used to sing it too before she got sick." Walter nodded, his eyes drifting somewhere far away. Perhaps to a memory. Perhaps to a song only he could still hear. From that day forward, Walter became part of the corner. He came nearly every afternoon, always with tea, always with a gentle word. Sometimes he brought a small paper bag of cookies. Other days he carried a folding chair, which he placed at the edge of the sidewalk like a front row seat in a concert made just for him. He never told her what to sing. He never gave advice. He never asked for anything at all. He just listened, quietly, faithfully, as if Lily's voice was not just music, but medicine, filling a space in his heart that had remained silent for far too long. And though he rarely smiled, when Lily sang, his eyes softened. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when Walter arrived at the corner carrying something different. Not a cup of tea, not a folding chair, but an old camcorder, the kind that recorded on tapes, worn at the edges like it had captured years of forgotten memories. Lily raised an eyebrow. "Curious, mind if I record one song?" Walter asked gently. Lily hesitated. Her fingers tightened slightly around her microphone. I don't know if I sound good on tape." Walter chuckled, that warm, gravelly laugh of his. "You sound like someone the world needs to hear." He knelt down slowly and set up the camera on a tiny tripod, adjusting it with care like a seasoned professional. Then, standing back, he said, "Just sing like you always do. Don't think about the lens. Just sing. Lily nodded slowly. She looked up at the clouds drifting overhead. She closed her eyes, then opened them again, and began. When I am down, and oh my soul so weary. She was singing, You Raise Me Up. The late afternoon light, golden and soft, began to settle over the street corner, illuminating her like a spotlight only the sun could provide. Her voice wasn't perfect. It cracked once. She wavered slightly on a high note, but it was honest, unfiltered, pure emotion, and somehow that was what made it unforgettable. People who had once hurried past began to slow down. A young man removed his earbuds. A woman with groceries paused in her tracks, and an elderly lady, dressed in lavender, brought a trembling hand to her heart. By the time Lily reached the final note, the street was quiet, not because it was empty, but because every sound had paused to listen. Walter packed up the tape that night and took it home. He didn't own much, but he had an old laptop and a lot of patience. He uploaded the footage to his Facebook page and typed a simple, heartfelt caption. This girl sings every day to help her mom afford medicine. She sings with more soul than any pop star I've heard. If you listen to one thing today, let it be this. He didn't expect much, but by sunrise the next day the post had over 10,000 shares. By evening, it was picked up by a page called Veterans Who Love Music. Then a local cancer support group reposted it. Then it hit YouTube, Instagram Reels, and a trending thread on Reddit titled, This street singer just broke my heart in the best way. Within 72 hours, the video had crossed 1.2 million views. Lily's song, once barely heard over traffic, was now echoing in homes, classrooms, and hospital rooms across the country. And for the first time in her young life, the world was finally listening. The video had only been online for a few days, but the ripple it created was already turning into a wave. Messages flooded in, one after another, as if every corner of the internet had suddenly turned its ear toward Savannah. I'm a retired nurse. Tell me where to send money. I lost my mom to cancer last year. This little girl just healed something in me. She made me believe in music again. Lily and Angela didn't own a computer, but Walter printed out the messages on thick white paper, clipping them into a folder every day. He brought it to her. Pages of names and places, and tears turned into typed gratitude. Lily would sit cross-legged on their worn carpet, reading each one out loud to her mother in a soft voice, her fingers tracing the words like scripture. And then came the reporters. A local news station in Savannah aired a short segment, a 13-year-old girl using her voice to fight cancer. One note at a time, footage rolled. Lily singing Beneath a Gray Sky, her cardboard box. Walter sipping tea, Angela, fragile but smiling from their apartment window. It wasn't long before the story reached beyond Georgia. That night, just after dinner, a small plate of rice and lentils. The phone rang in their tiny kitchen. Angela, wrapped in a knitted shawl, looked toward Lily. Can you answer it, sweetie? Lily picked up the phone, hands slightly shaking. Hello, warm, steady voice replied. This is Dr. Alina Moore from St. Mary's Oncology Center. We saw your video and we'd like to help. Lily blinked. Help how? Dr. Moore continued. There's a private fund. We can offer your mother treatment at a greatly reduced cost. And a charity organization has offered to cover the rest. There was a pause. Then the faint sound of a stifled sob on the other end of the line, not from Dr. Moore, but from Angela, who had quietly stood and reached for the phone. She took it with trembling hands and whispered, thank you so much. The next morning, Lily didn't sing on the sidewalk out of desperation. She sang because she could finally breathe. Because for the first time in months, the storm cloud hovering over their home had softened at the edges. It hadn't disappeared, but now there was light behind it. Her cardboard box was still there, but now with a new sign. Thank you for listening. And as she sang that day, her voice rising in the Savannah didn't just hear music. They heard hope. Not the kind sold on or spoken in speeches, but the kind sung into the wind by a 13-year-old girl who had nothing except the will to sing for someone she loved. The treatments had given Angela time, a gift measured not in months, in months, but in moments. She laughed more. She slept more peacefully. Her cheeks regained a faint blush of color. Sometimes on the warmer days, she even joined Lily on the sidewalk, wrapped in a cozy shawl, sitting in a foldable lawn chair, her eyes shining with pride as her daughter sang Beneath the City Sky. You sound just like I used to, she once whispered, reaching out to squeeze Lily's hand. But braver. It was a beautiful chapter. But some chapters are meant to be short. And some battles, no matter how bravely fought, are not meant to be won. One still winter morning, the kind where even the air seems to hold its breath, Lily awoke to silence, no coughing, no soft rustling from the other room, no whispered good morning. She stepped into her mother's room and found Angela lying peacefully, hands folded, a small smile resting gently on her lips, as if she were listening to a lullaby in her dreams. The world didn't stop. The clock still ticked. The city still hummed outside, but inside Lily something had gone still. The microphone stayed untouched. The guitar leaned against the wall, strings silent. The cardboard sign had been folded and placed away. Walter came that afternoon. He didn't knock. He simply sat on the front stoop with 2 cups of peppermint tea. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just sat, a quiet sentinel for a girl who had lost her light. On the 7th day, Lily stepped outside. She wore her mother's scarf. She carried her guitar, and in her trembling hands the old microphone. Walter stood. He didn't ask where she was going. He didn't offer advice. He simply handed her a new sign, one he had made himself. "This song is for Mom." Lily walked back to the corner of Maple and Vine. The city felt different, colder, quieter. But when she plugged in her speaker and took her breath, a strange warmth returned. A crowd began to form, not by design but by instinct. Some had seen her before. Some were strangers. Some held pink roses. Others clutched handkerchiefs. And when Lily opened her mouth to sing, the notes came not from her throat, but from somewhere deeper. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Her voice was cracked, but clear. Shaken, but brave. People stopped not for curiosity, but for communion. Some sang with her voices barely audible. Some cried quietly, holding each other's hands. Some closed their eyes and simply let the music carry them. In those 3 minutes, the sidewalk became more than pavement. It became a church, a healing room, a sanctuary built not of bricks, but of memory. And when the song ended, there was no applause, only silence, beautiful sacred silence, the kind that says, "We heard you, we felt you, and we won't forget." 1 year after her mother's passing, Lily Mae Carter stood beneath the grand crimson curtains of Willow Hall in Washington, D.C. It was the biggest auditorium she had ever seen. Over 500 seats stretched out before her, filled with senators, oncologists, musicians, and survivors, men and women who had weathered storms of their own, now gathered under a single banner, Voices for Hope, the National Cancer Association's annual musical tribute. Backstage, Lily's hands trembled. She wasn't wearing anything flashy. Just a pale blue dress her mother once picked out at a thrift store, and her mother's scarf, neatly tied around her wrist like a ribbon of remembrance. In her hands, a single worn sheet of lyrics, "You Are My Sunshine," the last song her mother ever hummed in her hospital bed, the first song Lily had ever sung on the sidewalk in Savannah, and slung over her shoulder the same acoustic guitar, old, scratched, but now engraved with 5 words in her own handwriting, "Keep singing, the world needs it." A soft voice echoed through the auditorium, and now, please welcome a very special guest, Lily Mae Carter, the young girl from Savannah, Georgia, who once sang on the sidewalk to save her mother's life. Today, she sings to bring hope to millions. A spotlight bloomed. Lily stepped into it. For a moment, the world disappeared, swallowed by the light. She looked out at the sea of faces, but saw only her mother's. She closed her eyes and began to sing. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." The sound was gentle. Not polished, not perfect, but pure, and as she sang, she poured every memory into every note. The echo of her voice against cold bricks, Walter handing her a paper cup of steaming peppermint tea, her mother's hand in hers on the quiet porch. The lullabies whispered in the dark, when fear pressed in each word, became a thread, stitching together grief and gratitude, sorrow and strength. "You make me happy when skies are gray." The room had fallen utterly silent. Doctors who had seen countless tragedies sat with tears pooling in their eyes. Survivors held their partners' hands tighter. Parents silently remembered children. Children silently remembered parents. And as Lily reached the final line, "Please don't take my sunshine away," a woman in the 3rd row, wearing a pink scarf, slowly rose to her feet, then another beside her, and then another. Within seconds, the entire audience stood, not to clap. There was no applause, no cheering, no noise at all. Instead, they placed their hands gently over their hearts, a gesture of reverence, of grief remembered, of hope rekindled. Tears glistened in eyes across the hall, but no one wiped them away. Because in that moment, every person in that room was a child again, listening to a song they didn't know they needed. And Lily, standing in the center of it all, knew she wasn't singing alone anymore. She never had been. A week after the standing ovation in Washington, D.C., Lily returned home to Savannah. The tiny house on the edge of town was quiet now, filled with sunlight and silence. The guitar leaned in the corner like it always had. The chair on the porch still rocked gently in the afternoon wind, and a worn envelope sat waiting in the mailbox. She opened it with cautious fingers. Inside, a cream-colored letterhead, elegant and unassuming. At the top, the seal of the American Folk Music Academy. The words inside were handwritten. "Dear Lily, your voice is a bridge between generations. It carries stories, grief, hope, and history. We would be honored to offer you a full scholarship to study at the Academy. Voices like yours don't need to be taught how to touch hearts. They just need a place where that voice can continue to rise. We believe you've already begun to change the world. Let us help you carry that gift even farther. With deepest admiration, Clara Jensen, vocal director and judge voices for Hope." Lily sat on the porch step as she read it again. And again, her fingers ran softly over the signature. She didn't cry, not this time. There was something quietly powerful about being seen, not just as a girl who had once sung on the street, but as an artist, a storyteller, a soul with a voice. That very night, she packed. The suitcase wasn't new. Its zippers caught sometimes and one wheel didn't turn well, but inside it went the essentials. A worn-out notebook filled with lyrics, 2 pairs of jeans, a soft blue dress, her mother's hand-stitched handkerchief, neatly folded and tucked inside her jacket pocket, and, of course, her guitar. As the night bus pulled away from Savannah, the lights of her small world flickered behind her, and on the empty seat beside her lay a relic of something irreplaceable: Walter's old video camera wrapped in a scarf. Taped to the side, a note in the neat, deliberate handwriting of a man who had once sat across from her in the rain. "Dear girl, this old man was never good at goodbyes. But if you're still singing, then I'm still alive in every note. Keep going. And never think you're singing alone." Walter. Lily pressed the note to her chest. Out the window, trees blurred by. Towns flickered and faded. But in her heart, nothing felt lost, everything. Her mother's lullabies, Walter's tea and silence, the strangers who paused to listen, had been planted like seeds. And now, they were growing. She didn't know exactly where the road ahead would lead, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would keep singing. Not just for her mother, not just for Walter, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever needed a voice to remind them they weren't alone. 3 years had passed. The world had spun forward, fast and full of noise. But in a quiet corner of Savannah, Georgia, something gentle had returned. Lily Mae Carter was back. Not as the girl who once sang on the street to save her mother. Not as the viral sensation. Not even as the young woman who brought tears to a packed theater in Washington, D.C. She returned simply, with calloused fingers, a calm heart, and a dream to give back what had once saved her. She used her scholarship well, studied deeply, sang often, but she had always known the road ahead wouldn't just be stages and spotlight. It would be community, healing, service. On the corner of Maple and Vine, the very same place she once stood with a battered cardboard box and a second-hand make, now stood a small building with chipped bricks, flower boxes under the windows, and a hand-painted sign above the door: Angela's Voice. Inside, it was nothing fancy. No stage lights, no recording booths, no shiny trophies on shelves. A basket of tea bags, a box of old guitar picks, a bookshelf filled with sheet music and lullabies, and a dozen folding chairs arranged in a circle. Every Saturday morning, Lily opened the doors at 900 a.m. sharp. Children came, some shy, some loud, some tired, kids from single-parent homes, kids from foster care, kids who didn't have much, but had something inside waiting to be heard. She didn't ask them to be great. She asked them to be real. She taught them that broken voices still carry beauty, that songs aren't measured by pitch but by truth. She would tune a guitar, adjust a mic, and then kneel down in front of each child, look them gently in the eyes, and whisper, "Sing, sweetheart, for someone you love," and they would, for a grandmother in the hospital, for a father they missed, for a pet who had passed, for a sibling they shared a room with, for a mom who worked 2 jobs, or just for themselves. People began to notice. Not the way they noticed viral videos, but the quiet way a garden grows. Parents who hadn't smiled in months stood at the back and wept. Teachers donated instruments. Local artists dropped in to help. One student, a boy named Jeremiah, wrote his own song about his brother in rehab. Another, a girl named Amara, sang entirely in sign language for her deaf sister. It wasn't a school, it wasn't a church, it wasn't a concert. It was something softer, a place for hearts to breathe. Sometimes Lily would sit by the window after a long Saturday, the room now empty, a soft hum of silence filling the air. She'd sip peppermint tea from an old mug, one that Walter had given her years ago, and she'd smile. She knew she couldn't fix the world, but she could offer this, a chair, a safe place to be heard, because that's all she had once needed. Outside, the wind would carry faint echoes down the street, voices small, unsure, but brave. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine, a song once sung to save a life, now teaching others how to live. And as the sun set over Savannah, its rays touched the faded wood of the front sign, once more Angela's voice, where songs begin with love. The story of Lily Mae Carter didn't end with applause. It didn't end with fame. It didn't even end with a song. It continued, in the hearts she touched, in the voices she lifted, in the quiet hope she gave back to a world too often filled with noise. She didn't just sing for her mother. She sang for all of us, for the forgotten, for the grieving, for those still waiting to be heard. The sunshine never left. It simply found a new way to shine, through her. And somewhere on a quiet sidewalk or a makeshift classroom, you can still hear it, not loud, but real, a voice, steady and soft, whispering to the next child, sing sweetheart, for someone you love. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, leave a comment below. Share your own sunshine, a memory, a song, a name, and if the world ever feels too loud, come back here to this quiet corner, where stories like Lily's are still being told, where love remains gentle, quiet but never fading. Don't forget to like and subscribe, so you'll never miss the next journey, one where hope is real, hearts are heard, and the sunshine keeps on shining.